everybody, this is Danny Class. There's lots of ways, as I think a lot of you know, to get different kinds of moods and different emotions out of the guitar. One of my favorite ones is a kind of a deflated sigh that we can get from the guitar using something called the Flattened 6th. And so that's the focus of today's lesson, how to do that. Okay, so to get us started, let's first define what we're talking about, this so-called Flattened 6th, or sharp 5, either one. And then we'll talk about how to make some chords out of it and hopefully to get some interesting movements, chordally speaking. Okay, so the flattened 6th is simply the 6th interval, meaning from a major scale, the 6th tone from the major scale down a half step. So let's do our example today in C, and I'm going to play the major scale here. And the 6th, it turns out, is an A. So if we flatten that down a half step, we have an A flat. And so when we play the root note, the C, and the A flat together, that is what we call a flattened 6th, that interval, those two notes. So there are multiple chords we can make out of this and to make some interesting kind of sighing sounds of the guitar, that deflated kind of sadness I was talking about. But what I was thinking I would do, as I was thinking about this lesson, was, well, let's start with a 6th chord. So this will be a C6 chord. That's one way to start. Not a flattened, just a C6 chord. And let's flatten that 6. Okay, we can already sense the movement. Where does it want to go? Well, one thing we can do as we do that, we can put this into an A minor major 7 suspended 4th chord, which is simply this fingering here. Playing at arpeggios, but you can play it any way you want. And then from here, there's different things we can do. Maybe make it just an A minor 7 suspended 4 chord. I'm not sure what this chord is here, but let's flatten that G to an F sharp. And then let's move this to an A flat major 7, and I'll explain why I chose that in a second. And then to resolve it, we can always just go back to a C major 6 chord, but let's change that to a C major 7 chord. So why did I choose those particular chords? There's two different ways we can kind of get at that. One is to know, if you know your theory, know that, well, they're all kind of in the world of diatonic harmony, but I'm definitely messing with some things, throwing some flattens in there, moving that that sound here on that 4th string down, 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 all the while kind of keeping the chord the same, like this, for example, this A minor major 7 chord with a suspended 4th. That's still an A minor chord when I'm moving it here and here. So that's one way to think about it. The other way, if you know your key that you're in this case C, no sharps nor flats, and if you know the fretboard, then you can kind of experiment. That last chord, this A flat major 7 chord, that is part of kind of my approach to guitar of the what if approach. And what I mean is, when I took this original C scale and I flattened the 6th, that's an A flat, that's the name of the note, and I thought to myself, well, thinking in sort of chordal harmony, what if I made that its own chord? Well, what chord? I don't know, but I know that major 7 chords are very jazzy. So what if I took that A flat chord and made that an A flat major 7, and then part of my brain was thinking, But wait a minute, that's not in the key anymore. You're not in the key of C. You have two notes here that are off the key. But so what? See if it sounds good, and I think it does. But it wants to resolve, and so I resolved it up here. Another option is simply just to switch between the C major 7 chord, not the C6, I think the C major 7 chord works really well here, and the A flat major 7. It's a cadence, those two chords. Think of that as sort of the bookends of our little exercise here, and all the chords can kind of fit in between. That's another way of thinking about this. Let's see if the sixes work. How about a C6 to an A flat 6? That kind of works too. It's a little more vague as though. And then maybe resolve it. Okay, so I'll play that again from the beginning, from that C6 chord. I flatten a 6. That's very important. Right? Always find a way to throw in that A flat to that funky A minor major 7 chord with suspended fourth. Take off the minor major. Now it's just an A minor 7 suspended fourth chord to whatever this chord is, still in the A minor world, to that A flat major 7 to resolve it. So I was doing a lot of arpeggios, a lot of picking, but you can find different ways to kind of bop it up if you want. Okay, so in terms of practice, in terms of approaching this, you don't have to do the key of C. I would encourage you to explore other keys and just kind of use as a bass sound the root note and the flattened 6, and find some ways to kind of play some chords around that. Or some open strings. There weren't any open strings here, but if you were, just as a quick example, in the key of A itself, and then you can always throw in an open A. The flattened 6 is an F. So hopefully you found that a useful lesson as a way to kind of maybe break out of some of the typical sounds that you hear when it comes to diatonic harmony, when it comes to jazz, and also as a good way to remind ourselves that it's good to kind of explore some of those notes in between, because the flattened 6 is in between the 5th and the 6th, and so that's chromaticism in some ways at its best. And it's a good way to kind of tell ourselves that there's always, especially in jazz, all these spaces in between intervals that are worth taking a look at. And, if you don't like the way it sounds, then you can always resolve it back to where you were, and we're back home, And here we were in the key of C. So if you go and you think, I don't know what this sounds like, it doesn't sound that great, well, resolve it back to C in some way. I always like C major 7 because it's so definite, and that might kind of give you the wholeness and the sound, the resolution that you're looking for. All right, so hopefully you found this lesson useful. Stay well. Please remember to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.